Okay, we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hopefully this time is going to be better than last week, which was kind of full of technical problems. But this week, I think we solved it. So if you are around, then please tell me if you can hear me, because that would be save a lot of time. How is the audio? Okay, today we are going to be talking about blues comping and blues chords, specifically around the areas of what to play when there's another guitar player and you're playing with them and you don't really want to play exactly the same chords as they do. And if you're playing blues particularly, typically that tends to happen. And unison playing is fine for a little bit, but I don't know, maybe not for the whole song, or maybe not for every song for the whole night. So here are some ideas what we can use to increase our blues chord knowledge and technique about where to put those chords and when to put those chords. So I'll just drop my pick. So let's just grab this and get started. So let's be in A, because A's kind of further up the fretboard, so it's a little bit below and a little bit above, and I like to play in A because it's a nice place to start. Okay, well, typically in a blues you will have 1, 4, 5, so we'd have usually those would be 7th chords or 9th chords depending on what you like to do. So here's an A7. This is a standard root 6 bar chord version of the A7. You've got 7 A, you've got 5 5 on the E string, 7 on the A string, the all important 5 on the D string, 6 on the G string, and 5 5 on the B and E string. Okay, and then you're going to move probably to the D7. This is a root 5 D7. So root 5 just meaning there's roots on the 5th string. So we've got obviously the roots on fret 5 on the A string, 7 on the D, 5 again on the G, 7 on the B string, and 5 on the E. And then back to your first chord. And then we'll be up to D, E7, D7, and then back to A7. Okay, so that's your standard 1, 4, 5. And most people will be doing, I don't know, they might be doing a shuffle. Now you could be doing that too, or you could be playing something else, something different, something not the same. So here are a couple of things you can do with that. First of all, you can upgrade your chords to 9th chords. It took me a long time to understand chords and their construction. I don't know why, because it's actually quite simple. The rules of building chords are as follows. To officially call it a chord, this is, hundreds of years ago when the forefathers of modern music and harmony decided on the rules. You need 3 pitches, 3 notes to make a basic chord. Okay, and then from that gives you your simplest form of chords, and you will hear them called triads. Okay, and that accounts for major chords and minor chords, diminished chords and augmented chords. So there's your family of 4. The first 2 obviously you will be most familiar with. Okay, so those contain 3 pitches. You might be playing all 6 strings. You're like, what? How can it contain 3 notes when I'm playing all 6 strings? But if you figure out what these notes are, you will find there's only 3 different notes in there. Some are duplicates, some are double ups, octaves higher than the same note lower down. Okay, so basic chords, 3 notes. And then basically from there, there's several other layers of complexity. So you start with 3-note chords. And I know some people might argue, well, a power chord is only 2 notes and that's an official chord. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Power chords, dyads, and double stops. I think modern thinking is that these are chords, but this is hundreds and hundreds of years ago when the forefathers of modern music and harmony were deciding. We didn't have rock music, okay? So power chords weren't really in the picture. But the levels of complexity are, you start with 3-note chords, the ones we just talked about, and then you add a 4th note, and you have these type of chords with 4-note chords. And you've got, basically, this is the 7th. So that gets sprinkled in, and if you're just familiar with 7th chords, that is a 4-note chord. Okay, the other 4-note chords are major 7, minor 7, and the 7th chords that we just commonly call 7th chords are more formally called dominant 7th chords. So then you've got a group of 4-note chords, and then we've got 5-note chords, and then we've got 6-note chords and 7-note chords. So you've got lots to choose from. And what happens with those 7-note chords? They're not different. They're just built on what's come before. So you start with your 3-note chord. Let's take a major chord, for example. The major chord is built from intervals in the major scale, and it takes the first note in the major scale, the 3rd note in the major scale, and the 5th note. So 1, 3, 5 makes you a basic major chord. Then if you want to make a more complex chord, you add a 4th note in there, and that would be the 7. So 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th. It basically just goes up in odd numbers. 5-note chords will be 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So you might be familiar with 9th chords. We're going to get to that. After 9th chords are 11th chords, and after 11th chords are 13th chords. Let's take a 9th chord. So a 9th chord has got 5 notes in it. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So the difference between a 7th chord and a 9th chord, here's a 7th chord, and here's a 9th chord. There's just one more note in there. That's why in blues you can use a D7 or whatever 7, or you can use a D9. I actually prefer 9ths because they sound more bluesy to me with that 9th chord in there. I remember when I was learning, I was doing like, and I was like, yeah, that's okay. But when I got to like, I was like, that's the sound I've heard on record. Okay, so I'm cool with all of that. 4-note chords, 5-note chords, and really, I guess, generally, guitarists' knowledge probably stops at the level of complexity of just 4-note chords. So that means you've got your majors, your minors, and your diminished and your augmented as your 3-note chord knowledge. Then you've got your 4-note chords, which is a major 7, minor 7, diminished 7, and you've got your dominant 7s. And that's pretty much where we go. If you're a pianist, you'd probably be into like the 11th and the 13th and the 9ths as extensions. So let's look at those now, because I think the 11ths are quite interesting in blues and 13ths are just great. If you want to know those extra notes to add into your existing chord, you just count up the major scale. So if we take an 11th, for example, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have to put this somewhere. Let's say we're going to do an A dominant 11th. Okay, so first of all, we need to make a dominant 7th chord. And then we need to try and add in the 9th and then the 11th. But quite commonly with guitar, as opposed to piano, with guitar, we've only really got 4 fingers to make those notes. So what we end up doing as interestingly, as the chords get more complex and we're adding in more notes to the chord, we're actually, in terms of fingering, removing some notes out the other side to enable us to play the color tones, to enable us to play the 9s and the 11s and the 13s, things like that. Typically, you start by leaving the 5th out, because the 5th, it kind of thickens up the sound, but it doesn't really add any color. So that one can be left out and really doesn't affect the chord. Then we probably next one to go would be the root, which sounds kind of like heresy. You're like, well, the root's like the main part of the chord. It tells us everything about, you know, what the relationships between the other notes are. Yeah, but in an ensemble, if you're playing with somebody else, usually the bass player, is playing the root note. So you kind of don't have to, because that's already covered in the total harmonic landscape of, you know, there's a bass player, there's a drummer, there's you. The bass players can be playing root notes for the most part, so you don't have to. So that means you can free up those fingers for other things. So let's take a look at like an 11th. This is that 11th note that was here. I've just moved it over here to make it playable. And what I've got, it's got a very kind of suspended, dissonant sound to it. What we're doing is we're on 5 E, nothing on the A string, 5 on the D string, 6 on the G string, and 3 on the B string. Nothing on top E. Okay, drop my pick again, which is kind of dumb. All right, why is that so dissonant? It's because it includes this note here, which is the 3rd, and this note here, which is the 4th or 11th if you're going higher up, because the 4th is really there. But an octave higher, a 4th that's an octave higher, is referred to as the distance of a perfect 11th. So this note here, so we've got this, it's those two tones fighting with each other. Then that's an 11th, that's a nice shape to be using. Don't use it throughout the whole chord if somebody's going. I would probably use it for the last kind of 2 beats or something like that, just to create a bit of a tension before it moves to the D9. Otherwise it's tense all the way through, and you know the whole point of tension is there's some release, and so don't put it right in there from the start. That's one I use a bit. The other one is the 13th chord, which is great. Again, we're adding this note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Now I'm doing kind of thumb over, but you could just go, we're doing 5 on the E, 5 on the D string, but nothing on the A. Getting 6 on the G string, and that all important 13th note on the B string. That's it. Some kind of jazz fingering. You can also do thumb over like that. But the main point is that you get this top end, because those are the new notes, right? That 13th. So when you put it into context, you can also bar with pinky. So you bar that 7th fret, so you get like, that's also a legitimate 13th chord. You're just adding the 9 in on top there. And that's kind of nice when people are just playing like. And one thing I like to do is slide it from 1 fret below, especially if it's a kind of quick, you know, look. So 13s are good. I use them all the time. People always ask me what I'm playing, because it sounds different to the 7ths and the 9ths that are playing, and that's, you know, it's because there's an extra note or an extra 2 notes in there. Let's look at some other shapes. We can use our 9th here. This is an A9. So what we've done is build our chord from this root note rather than this root note. So we're not doing anything on the E, nothing on the A, 7 on the D string, 6 on the G string, 8 on the B string, and 7 on the top E. So that's a nice one. Another one you can use up, it's a 9th chord, but it's a good one. Steve Ray Vaughan used this one a lot. You can drone the open A string or not have it at all, and then the rest is this kind of, well, I I guess it looks a bit weird, but I'm playing 11 on the D string and then 12, 12, 12 on the other strings. So you can use that. Okay, and of course you can use these in other places too. So if you move to the D, you can use a D9, which is you already kind of, that's a bit lower down. I think there's something about the A9 which is nice because it's such a distance away from the open string. It's kind of higher up. It's got a kind of rockabilly kind of feel to it. All right, what else have we got? Oh, another one. This is also an A9. Now I remember hearing this. Yeah, where's my pick? I remember hearing this in Hideaway by, well, I know the original's by Freddie King, but I heard Clapton playing with the Blues Breakers doing this, and I heard there's this bit in it that goes, it's in E, and it goes like. Something like that, and I was like, and I was intrigued by that. Because I hadn't heard that grouping before, I hadn't heard that voicing. There it is. Okay, so that's an E, and this is an E9. And we'll move it up to A, because everything else we've been doing is an A, so it goes up to here. And that is, we are here at the on the G string, and we're at the 16th fret. 16 on the G, 17 on the B. No, sorry. 16 on the G, 14 on the B, and 17 on top E. That's great. Now another one I've heard that's one note additional to that, which is still an A9, is just with that bottom note there. So that's basically in the addition of a note on the 17th fret of the D string. And I heard that Stevie Ray Vaughan has used that in what do we have? Love Struck, I think. Yeah, so he did something like a. Here it comes. That's our lovely A9. So there's a couple of other ones you can put in there. The 11th. 13. 13 with a 9 on top. A9. So all of those are good. It's just where to place them. And I think if somebody's playing like a I probably won't be doing that. I would probably do something probably two notes. Something. So guitar part one would be doing that. And I would be doing just to give it a little more space, and I'm not playing when they're playing. And I think that's a real skill to learn, is to find your space in that musical landscape. How is it going? What am I meaning? Just find your space in it, not step on anybody's toes. Sometimes unison parts are great, because if you are doing separate things throughout the song, it's kind of nice. You can bring them together. You can do a unison part in the song for a different feel, and then move it away again. These are just all creative choices. So I am not going to spend too much more time, because it's just a short one today. Another exploration of this live streaming thing, because it was an amazing experience last time, and I've done it slightly differently this time, and well, we'll see. What else do I want to talk about? Oh yeah, so what I just played there, just little double stops. I mean, you would have heard that a lot in blues. Put it anywhere. So all it is, we've got these it's two notes on two different strings separated by a string with nothing on it. So we are playing the D string and the B string, and that's it. Okay, there's no other strings available. No other strings that I'm playing, and I'm kind of claw hammering them, but you can use a pick and make sure you mute the middle note, or rather the middle string, which is the G string. So if your root is here, this phrase or this little dyad, double stop, always starts on the same fret as the root that's on your E string, underneath it. Okay, so if your root's there, these dudes are here. If your root's here, these dudes are here. And that's your starting point. You slide up 2 frets and bring it back down to where it started. So for slow blues, you could do like. For slightly faster stuff, you can do like. And then when it goes to the 4 chord, obviously the 4 chord, the root of the 4 chord in A, this is our root of our D. Then we basically, if you look at what we've done, we've gone from our root on this string, we've moved down 1 string, so from the E string to the A string. So with this little shape, we're going to move when we move to the D string for the 4 chord, we're going to move this down 1. We're going to move down a set of strings. So now we're playing top E and the G string, and do the same thing there. And then when we get to the 5 chord, the 5 chord in A obviously moves up 2 frets from the 4 chord. And so similarly, if we were playing this for the 4 chord, we're going to do the same. We're going to follow that and move it up 2 frets, and that's going to be our starting point for the E. Cool. Okay, let's take a look and see how we're doing here. I am looking for the chat and I can't find it, which is kind of interesting. So I can't see anybody's questions or anything. So that's a bit of a fail, but we live and learn. Let's see what else we can conjure up here. One second. Oh. It is cold. Okay. All right. So we've covered 9ths, 11ths, 13ths. The fact that when we play 11ths and 13ths, and 9ths, we usually omit some other notes in the chord. Usually it's the 5th followed by the root. Even if you look at like this regular 7th shape, this is a D7. You can see that this is the root, the 3rd, and the flat 7. Even in this small 3-note voicing, the 5th is omitted. And I guess it's because we need this finger to make a 9. We add the 9 on the end. And if that's the 9, then moving this up 1 makes it a sharp 9, gives us the Hendrix chord. And if you move the 9 down 1 fret, you get a flat 9. And sometimes I use that motion just before moving to the next chord. So if we're just to indicate that something is coming. It's a little bit of dissonance. It's a little bit like, I wouldn't play it all the time. I wouldn't play like. resolution to, or it needs a resolution back down to. And again, moving up to the 5 chord, you could use that. So that's a little thing you can do with the 9 that's interesting and a little bit colourful. When you've got that D, that kind of this grip. Okay, peeps, that's all for this week. Hopefully next week I'll get better and better at this. And if you've got any questions about anything we've covered here, then drop a note in the chat. I've just remembered one other thing that I wanted to cover. So that's not all, but wait, there's more. I did a video just last week on these other chords. And let's just use this as an example. I think I was using B as an example, and we're doing this. Okay, so I did a video on those, and those are chords I don't see played at all, really. Not in the pubs and the clubs and the jams that I go to. And I thought, well, why don't I show some people those chords? They look weird, but they're actually not that weird. What we've got, we had a kind of regular 1 chord in B, that typical blues rhythm figure. And then we went to this one. Geez, what's that? Never seen that. Look at his fingers. They're spread out. And well, actually, the reason it looks weird is because of that finger spread, and it doesn't really look like a common shape that you know. But if you just did that and took those and refingered them, you go, oh, that's a E7, right? So what's that other note? That note is just a double up of this one. So in the 7th shape, you've got the root, the 3rd, and the flat 7. So I've just, instead of playing it with my 1st, 2nd, and 3rd finger, I've refingered it to be 4th, 3rd, and 2nd, and I've got this pinky free to play just to this 3rd an octave lower. And there you got, it's not a different color because you're still just using those 3 pitches, but it is a different stacking of the intervals. So the first time around I used that to standard. I've seen Robin Ford use this, and it's quite cool because he's quite cool. So it's good to borrow. The next time I did it, a slight variation. Now, if you played this chord in isolation without the context of what we just played, it just sounds weird. I mean, like, dude, that's not even a chord. That's just something you play to annoy people. But it is a chord. On its own, doesn't sound. It just sounds very chromatic and like those finger exercises. But legitimately, this is a good use for it, because what we've done here is do the same thing I just did with that previous one. When I had the E7, and I doubled up this note, put it down there. Well, we're doing it again in this instance. So we've got this note, and we've got this note, and this note, and this note. Okay. What I'm doing is I'm now moving this note, which is our root note, our D root note. I'm moving that 2 frets down to there, which is the double up of this note, which is the flat 7. Okay, so what we've got is basically a pair of a third and a flat 7, and then the octave of that, a third and a flat 7. Doesn't sound that good on its own, like I said, and we're missing out the root. But if you put it in the context of it works. And the nice thing about this, you can go. I think it's something like that. I should have worked this out. But you can move those up. I think it's there. Yeah, got to be there for that one. Then it's got to be. So the top one is tricky. Okay, so that's a massive stretch because you've got a fret here between your second and your third finger. So that, if you wanted to play that, that is we're at 6 on the D string, 7 on the G string, then 9 on the B string, and 10 on the top E. Okay, the slightly easier version is that one. So we just this is the second one, this is the first one, and then we're just refingering the chord to start here with that, the second note in that first shape I showed you. We're starting with that second note, moving everything up. So the second note becomes the first note, etc., etc., and then we add that one on top. Because of the B string, because you're crossing to the B string, you need to move everything up 1 fret. So that's why there's a 2 fret difference between our third finger and our fourth finger. So you could just as easily use that. That might actually be worth me practicing because it's got to go on the A string. Okay, so those are some additional weird chords. Now, I think I covered everything today. Thank you for joining me. Sorry, it's a bit haphazard, but there you go. It's Sunday morning here. It's kind of early, and I haven't had coffee. And well, we'll try better next time. All right. If you have any questions, drop a comment in the space below, and let's do it all again next time. This time next week, hopefully. And well, see you then. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Not compulsory, but you know, I like to see people that I can help subscribing, people who can give me feedback on what I'm coming up with and whether it's confusing or whether it actually helps. So subscribe or give me a thumbs up if this was useful to you, and I'll see you again next week. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Bye.